Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Domino Dialogues, an extension of Somo Society. Today we have a fantastic show, like always. Awesome guests, great speakers. We're going to have a great discussion while playing a game of dominoes. So join us, pull up the seat. This is the Domino Dialogues. Today's guest, we have Dr. Keith Goerge, founder of Pristine Home Care. Welcome.
So nice to have you here. Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Also at the table, Charles DeLeon, trauma-informed trainer, behavioral health consultant, you name it, just all the way around, just a community resident, community advocate all the way around, just so many titles that we could place under your name. So thank you for being here, Charles.
Thank you for the invite. Appreciate it.
All right, well, let's get it started, man. Today we're going to talk about, matter of fact, before we even go there, who has the double six? Oh, he's starting off. So, Dr. Keith, you might want to throw something in there.
Do I go now?
Yep. Now, quick question. It's all fair. Have you ever played dominoes?
I've never played dominoes before.
Right. I guess today's going to be a tough lesson for you because we're having a conversation and playing at the same time. And I might get away with some cheating, for that. What brings us to the table today, we want to be able to speak about health and mental health in our communities, right? But why are we speaking about it today? Why does it matter? And what made Somo Society bring both of you to the table to speak on this topic? So today I want to start off with you, Charles. What made you get into this line of work?
Mental health, my degree's in counseling. So my field is largely women. The nurturing side really comes out in this field. I kind of fell in this field, if I'm being honest. I was always a helper. I always helped people. I always wanted to help people. I was always into community service. I served in the Marine Corps, all these other things. And really, this was supposed to be a job. My goal was really to get into law enforcement. Believe it or not, it's hard to believe now, but it's funny because my friends who know me when I was younger be like, I can't believe you became a therapist. But so, when I first got into the field, it just seemed like a lot of mumble jumble, like it wasn't real. Like I really felt at the time like it was just, like Mary Poppins, like it wasn't true. Right? I just needed a job to get me over until I got into law enforcement. But the more I worked in this field, the more I saw how it changed people's lives. And I was working, my first mental health job was working at Kensington High School in the emotional support classrooms, which was very difficult at the time because I was very limited at that point of what trauma-informed was and what that means. And I thought that my job was mainly to house these kids until they went to prison. I honestly thought that was how I was thinking at the time.
I'm sorry, what made you think that?
I was just having such a hard time getting them to do anything, to do things the right way, to want to participate. The kids were loud, they were cursing, they were disrespectful. And I couldn't understand where that was coming from. Right, I was coming out the Marine Corps, right, from a place that was structured, that showed me respect, where I had some sense of status, to working with children or adolescents, right, teenagers, who just were disrespecting me. And I didn't know how to take that, right? My ego didn't understand how to take that. So it was more me saying, something has to be wrong with them. It's not me, right? So the only way that my mind could kind of wrap around it is saying they're the ones that are failing. I'm not the one that's failing, right? So it had to be that they're destined to just not do the right things. It had nothing to do with me. However, 2 years into the process, I run into a child who graduated. At the time, I really honestly disliked this kid. He was disrespectful. He spit in my face, like literally spit in my face. And I was happy when he graduated. And I saw him up on Fifth and Island. I was buying a pair of kicks. This is like 2006 or something. And he tells me, hey, Mr. Charles, you know, he was thanking me for how I treated him. And he was talking about conversation. We had many. I didn't remember this one in particular, but it sounded like me. And he just thanked me and left. And I didn't think about him at all. And then when it came time for me to leave to get into law enforcement, something was pulling my heart back. Like, you know what? There's something here. So my undergrad is in criminal justice because that was the goal, to go into law enforcement. And when I stayed, and currently I work at Children's Crisis Treatment Center, and that's where I was working at the time. What I realized was that my purpose, right? Well, the way therapy works and the way being trauma-informed work, when you're working to help somebody lift themselves up, your job, you can't lift them up. What you can do is create an environment so they can lift themselves up. So what I'm responsible for is making sure that I tend the soil, I plant the seed, it gets water, it gets sunlight. It's the seed's job to grow. So if I'm creating the conditions for the seed to grow, I'm doing my part, right? It takes courage to look at yourself and say, this part of me isn't good, right? This part of me isn't working. And it takes courage to change that. So if I say that I'm the reason for that change and I'm taking away that courage that it takes. And when I kind of understood that, trauma-informed kind of really clicked with me. I understood what my purpose was at that point. So, yeah.
No, thank you. And you found your way to still protect and serve.
Yeah, I did.
Different title, same job.
Yeah, and I think, I believe I have a larger impact now than I would if I was in law enforcement. If I was in law enforcement, I would get there after the fact, right? Here I'm being proactive.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your service. Dr. Keith.
Yeah.
You know, many times we sat down and had many different discussions. So I knew from our first discussion I wanted to have you on the show. The reason why you started Pristine. To me, it's such a beautiful story, and I would love for you to share that to the world today, if you don't mind.
So, obviously, growing up in an immigrant family, we look at aging a little differently. Like, our upbringing and our culture is that seniors typically, family in general, stay in one spot. So we grow up together as like one unit. So my grandmom, who came to America to help my mom raise my baby brother, you know, she did a lot to take care of all of us growing up. So as she started to face the challenges of the aging process, questions became like, all right, what do? Do we put her in a nursing home? Do you put her in assisted living? She didn't speak English. She had such strong roots to like her culture that whenever a nursing facility were to bring her like lunch or dinner, she wasn't eating it. So they would be like, oh, this patient is declining because she's refusing to eat. She doesn't have appetite. She does have appetite. She just doesn't have an appetite for the type of food that was being served. So one of the options that were presented was home care, which is providing care at the home while having the individual stay there and age and be surrounded with their familiar surroundings. It started off pretty good. We had different agencies come out, but then the type of care that she was receiving, it's almost like I didn't understand the logic behind picking the caregivers that came out to provide the care. So even then was a challenge because they couldn't connect with her. So for me, it was important. I have my background as a healthcare administrator. I ran, skilled nursing facilities. I figured like as the future goes into a more person-centered care approach, there needs to be a right type of like agency structure that focuses on the individual and the entire 360 experience of the aging process. So I started a home care agency in honor of my grandmom, because once we found the right caregiver, she was expected to go on hospice, which gave her like 3 months to live. And then fortunately, because of the home care intervention, we got another 6 years with her. And that was a blessing through and through. And seeing how my mom, who's like one of the strongest people I know, and seeing how, as a nurse herself, coming back and tackling the challenges of taking care of an aging a parent, of all things. She needed support as well, and she didn't really speak about that. She kind of, as the daughter of a strict immigrant mom, like, she took it all on her own without really reaching out. So as an agency owner, I realized like how much of an extension we become to family, and to help people kind of process that aging journey that no one's really prepared for in advance. It kind of just creeps up on you, and you're tackling challenges that you've never seen before. But for me now, when I see the different families that come through our company, I always remember my grandmom, and I understand like the family struggle to take care of their loved ones. And I see my grandmom and honor her, through the care that we provide through our agency.
And so many families are so similar, right? From the Puerto Rican and Latino families, like we're not going to send grandmom to a home, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm not, but just looking at how certain families function, certain cultures function to keep us together, right? Because grandmom was someone who was key. We spoke about that in one of our shows, about how grandmom was there to help out. You go get your degree, you go to work, we're going to watch the kids, we're going to help out, we're going to tend to everyone. There's so many similarities with different cultures. I noticed that you do so much work in the Latino and the Puerto Rican community. And when I finally got to meet your staff, this is, kind of funny here, because I was invited to a Christmas party. So I'm over here rushing, thinking I was late. Started the party around 6. It turned out to be that the party originally was at 7. I said, dude, I'm sorry. He was like, listen, I got Latino staff. So I started, because we started an hour early. And moving into the next question, real quick, was that I noticed that you had a tight-knit family. It was like another kind of family when I saw everyone from Allentown and Philadelphia and the different parts of Philadelphia, and you had them all get up and read something positive about each other, something that they felt like the way they connected. You force folks to, how do you connect with your coworker, and to see how some of them were emotional and how it brought that sense of family back. Why is it so important? Not only just from this is a question for both of you, right? The mental health of families, right? Because it's not just the individual, but the family, right? Because we talk about how things are passed down. Why is it so important? Not just health, but the mental health piece. And that's a question any of you could jump in there.
When men receive flowers, typically after they pass. And it's almost like we live in this place where it's like so much negative bias, where we believe the worst of ourselves, that people must be looking at us like, oh, we're not worth this or worth that. We make a simple mistake and you think everybody's angry at you. So typically when I do my, Christmas speech, it's me standing up there giving my thoughts. So this year I went around and I gave papers to my staff and said, these are the names of all your coworkers, write something nice about them. So as I collected it, you're standing there with 15 items of different people saying good things about you. And it really broke some people down, because they didn't realize that all these people felt so positive. I have an impact. My existence makes people feel this type of way. And it was beautiful, because you spend 40 hours a week typically with your coworkers. That sometimes is more than you spend with your kids, your spouses. So if you're going to be around these individuals and give up a big chunk of your life, because that's time that's going by, you want to know at least it's just more than just the paycheck at the end of the day, that you're having beyond that a purpose and a lasting impression around those, people that you're with most of the time. So that was really important that I did that.
Well, thank you for the invite for that. I appreciate that. 'Cause, Charles,
yeah.
Before you get into that, I have a true story moment with you. So I'm human, like anyone else. I have my mood swings. It was one of those days I was in a completely bad mood, and I was on that F everything, right? And I was on that mode. Get on the phone, start scrolling. Here pops up Charles with one of his motivational speeches, right? And I just wanted to just keep scrolling because I said, here you go, Charles, not today. You're not going to get me. You're not going to get me, right? And when I went to try to scroll, it was another video. And so it was it was another video. So it was kind of like, I didn't want to be positive, right? But when you started to speak, I said, you know what? I turned it up. I was in the car. Turned it up, and I found myself Usan.
Thank you for sharing.
And getting to that, knowing that you're human too, and you have your days, what makes you get up every day to make sure that you put something positive out into the universe?
Yeah, so I appreciate that. Thank you. I do want to say that I look at things like a little bit different. I'm not always positive. I think it may look like that from the outside. I'm just an optimist. I believe that no matter what we're experiencing, what we're going through, that we have the capability to overcome it. Not that it's not going to be difficult, not that it's not ugly right now, right? But I believe that we have the tools, we have the people around us to overcome pretty much everything, because suffering is real and pain is real. And there is a mind and body connection that I think that sometimes we fail to miss, especially if we're just educated in Western philosophy, right? And what we look at, what's medical. When we feel stress and we feel that fuck everything attitude, right? That's our nervous system telling us something is wrong, right? So because of that, we feel tight, we feel tense, right? There's different endorphins going on in our bodies. Perfectly normal. Perfectly, it doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're salty. It means right now this is what you're experiencing. We all experience it. We're all capable of feeling wide range of emotions, wide range of feelings, and we're supposed to, right? We get angry because angry tells us something is wrong, right? Doesn't mean we're right about it, but it's telling us that something is wrong. So that means it's time for us to kind of decode what's going on. Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling, right? And there are times that I get up, especially in today's climate, that I'm like, I'm gonna burn shit today. You know what I mean? And I think that's okay to feel that way. You know, I think that just because we feel it doesn't mean we have to act it out. Right? I think we could feel things and process it out without burning it. We can say we want to burn it, right? We can say, man, fuck this to ourselves. We can say it out loud, but we still treat people with dignity. We still treat people with respect, right? So it's okay to have those feelings. It's okay to feel like at this moment right now, hopelessness. It's okay to feel that, right? It's okay. And sometimes all you can do is put on your boots, you know what I mean? Get in the car, go to work, get your coffee, come home. And if that's all you did, guess what? You did a lot more than most of us, right? So it's okay when you're in these moments. What I specifically do when I am feeling overwhelmed, and as a therapist, I carry a lot, right? Because there's something called vicarious trauma, right? If you constantly keep hearing these, and I know you have, constantly be bombarded with these stories, and you're holding space for all these people, right? You have hundreds of kids that come through here, and all of them don't have happy stories, and you're taking all this in. It's going to affect you because you're human.
Trying to go to sleep at night with 24 tabs open in your head.
Yes.
You know, question, how does health and mental health kind of like intermingle when it comes to our families? When you speak about immigrant families, Latino families, the culture, because you mentioned like there's Western medicine, right? But then there's also ways and habits that we bring that are not healthy mentally or physically. How do we as a society of people kind of still respect the culture, but also push our families into evolving when it comes to, because I think mental health sometimes is stared upon a little bit different when it comes to different families and different cultures, but also food, right? Certain foods. So, we're on the table, and I'll take advantage of throwing something out here. But if anybody wants to really chime in on that and speak about the challenges, because that is a real challenge, because the mental health, because if one person in the family is off physically and mentally, the whole family's off.
So what I want to say is that I want us to start thinking about mental health and physical health as a unit, right? If I have a heart problem, I'm gonna go to a cardiologist, right? If I have a foot problem, I'm gonna go what they call podiatrist, right? Depending what part of the body. If I'm going to my regular doctor, I'm going to an internist, right? Because I have the flu, I'm going for my checkup. When I have these specific issues, I go to a specific doctor. Your mental health is part of that. There's studies that have been done. There was a study conducted in the 90s called the ACEs study. I know you're familiar with the ACEs study. But what we learned from that is when people are under this traumatic stress for long periods of time, when it becomes chronic, right? The release of cortisone, which is the endorphin, which gets you kind of ready to fight or flight, whatever that stimulates that. It increases the chances of you having heart disease, diabetes, and we're talking about factors of triple and quadruple. It's amazing how much mental health affects your physical health, right? Just because of these endorphins that are constantly released in your body. So when it comes to family, we all heard of the generational trauma, right? There's been studies that have shown people who had grandparents who were in Auschwitz that what came back and their grandkids weren't part of that, but they heard stories and now they feel it, right? They're carrying this pain, this trauma their grandparents experienced, and because they didn't experience, they're scared to talk about it. But now their body is still experiencing like if they were there. And because they're not talking about the reasons of cortisone, which creating all these issues. I think it's important to respect the culture. You got to bring the culture in. At the same time, we have to call a spade a spade. When things aren't working, I have no tools. I still don't have no tools. When things aren't working, we have to call them out. Machismo in the Latin community is a big thing, right? If we were in the 90s, right, and Decibel walked in, I want to stand up a little taller just to let him know, hey, it's cool if you're cool, but if you're not cool, that's cool too, right? Machismo, right? As we get older, we get a better way to handle it. But what happened with machismo is, I don't need mental health. I'm good, right? I'm hurting, but I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't have to ask for help, right? It's looked as weakness to say, I need support, right? So I think we have to change that. We have to change that narrative. And I think we're starting to put some chinks in the armor. But it's difficult when we have things in the internet like the red pill movement, who pushes a narrative that you have no control over what you're experiencing. It's somebody else's fault, right? I'm not saying that there aren't external factors that causes us to feel depressed, that makes us feel lonely, that makes us feel oppressed. That's true, right? What's not true is that doesn't mean that we have to experience things the same way. And what I mean by that is somebody can tell me, Charles, you're dressing whack, whatever, right? I can take that and be like, well, and attack him the way he's dressing or the way his hair is. Or I can take it as, it's just an opinion. I control how I respond to it. In life, that's only controlled. The only guarantee you have is how you respond to the adversity. That's it.
Thank you for that. Dr. Keith, you also have an urgent care. How many times, even just in the health industry period, how many cases that you see that after a while that you hear of that could be avoided if folks were to take care of themselves mentally, that led to them ending up in the urgent care, or some of our elderly folks? Do you feel, or do you see that there's cases that could have been prevented?
I completely agree with you how we have to shift the way that we look at physical and mental health. And a lot of times they're one and the same. A lot of times when people think that physical health is, yeah, I could go to the gym and work something out, or go to a specialist and take care of something, mental health requires a similar amount of focus every day to give it the attention and nurture it the same proper way as your physical health. The way that I've seen a lot of people neglect their mental health, because especially from an immigrant background, of no one cares, work harder, or I don't have time to be sad today, I gotta get stuff done.
It's a luxury,
So,
right? Yeah.
So like, who am I to complain, about, I'm feeling sad today, when we got to put food on the table, we got to work, we got to advance our careers, we have to take care of everyone around us. Especially from an immigrant background, it was like survivor's guilt. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm doing well, I have to make sure my brothers are good, got to make sure my mom's good, got to make sure my cousins are good. And then we all kind of like stay within that, like, lifting up one another. However, you no longer become the focus. Like, you're not the individual anymore, and your needs are not there anymore. So then what happens over time is you start tearing little by little. One of my good buddies, he has like an engineering background. So he talked about like the mechanisms of the body. And we spoke briefly on what impact like weight, for example, does to your system, on your joints, on your movements, and then the comorbidities that come with that, hypertension, and you got high blood pressure, all these things that start to like compound, and then one day you just break. And by the time you go in to an urgent care for a care, like, help me, this could have been avoided if all the proper seeds were planted way earlier, and then you were like taking that into effect. But then one and the same, was it your mental health that I don't have time to work out, I don't have time to eat healthy, I don't have time, no time, I gotta move. The stress, almost like a black sludge, flows through your system, and it all like compounds and intertwines with one another, and it's all affected.
Yeah, it does feel like in our community, it does feel like a luxury to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Self-care is like, that's a luxury. I don't got time for that. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I noticed on your Instagram, you post a lot of your cooking. How important does food play a big part of, and this, this is a good topic on this table, because how it plays a big part of mental health, and also physical health. Like, he's trying to play, he's learning fast. He's getting in there while I'm talking. The importance of, I know once in a while, like, you got to splurge, or you don't have to, but we do. But the importance of really changing that diet, and how it plays a big part of just how you feel mentally.
So food, for me in particular, is a reward system. Like, I eat something good, I feel like, oh, like,
yeah.
When I was a kid, my parents, my dad especially, was like, if I got good grades, they'll take me to Burger King on Friday, or order Chinese for us on Friday. So like, I associated this delicious junk food as like, I did, and then I was a smart kid, so I got a bunch of A's, and then I started, like, I had like the chubbiest cheeks you could imagine, because I just constantly just was craving like this junk food. So it's almost coincidentally the most success I've had in my life, whether it's like, crushing it, my dissertation, or getting like advancements in my careers, it was also the heaviest in my life, because I neglected like the training, I neglected good sleep, all these habits that are supposed to be taking care of your body. It's like, I don't have time for that. So if it's 8 p.m. and I'm done a long day, I'm reaching for the greasiest like fried chicken or my fried.
It's comfort.
It's comfort.
Yeah. We were talking about that before Edwin got here. That I've changed how I eat. Right, I've lost 75 pounds, and
congratulations.
Thank you. Over this year, and really, I haven't stopped eating anything that I've ate. It's just the portions are moderation. And I know I'm a cheesesteak guy, right? I can't have a cheesesteak every day.
You know what? I'm sorry. This is a copy cool moment. Usually a copy cool moment has to do with anything philosophical, but cheesesteak is philosophical. So you know what? There you go, Charles.
Love me a good cheesesteak. But I know, right, I can't have a cheesesteak every day, right? So now, I've committed to myself, if I have a cheesesteak, it's maybe once every 2 weeks, right? And that's really kind of shifted how I think of things. And I got into food prep and making sure that I have food at home that's ready to go. I could just throw it, have it ready in 5 to 10 minutes, and I can eat. So, and I also don't keep myself hungry.
Who came up with this idea that men should not be cooking or in the kitchen? Because I think that if you, as a guy, can figure out a good way to cook, have food on hand, that's a flex.
I'm glad you brought that up because, culturally, right? You're talking about the different cultures, the Latino culture, Indian culture, whatever it is that come in, whoever it is, Brazil, Colombians, Latin America, even in Asia, Asia, right? There's a stereotypical like the woman should stay in the kitchen, right? And men do not cook, right? I'm glad you brought that up because now when I see you posting, cooking, right? That's next level stuff, right? At the end of the day, especially for someone who's out in the market, right? So if you have a gentleman out in the market single, I think you will attract a woman more than having a brand new car if you knew how to cook, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Abigail, right? I think a woman now will look like, oh, he could cook. Right? I don't care what he's driving, he could cook some food. So.
I love cooking. Like, it's therapeutic for me, right? The cutting, the making sure the heat's right, having the right pan. I'm a iron pan guy. Having those things. I do most of the cooking at home. My wife can cook, and I love her cooking, but I love cooking. Do you know what I mean? So I prepare it, I make it. I need to expand. I want to, cook different things because I have certain things that I keep in the wheelhouse. But for me, that's almost like gym time. Like it's my time. Like I can think of what I want. I can play the music that I want, maybe some Bad Bunny, whatever I want to listen to.
So what is that feeling while you're cooking? I mean, mentally, like, what is that feeling while you? Is that a form of meditation, or is
it taps into like this. I think more machismo. Like the feeling. Like I'm proud. I made this with my hand. I put it together. It tastes delicious. I did it myself. If I was craving a cheesesteak and I know how to cook, and I know I can't just have a greasy cheesesteak, I'll slice up some ribeye steak, throw some peppers and onions, put it in a bowl, and I'm like, it gets that like craving done for me without sacrificing all those like calories and that greasy feeling afterwards.
And I'll be honest, I love to hear, oh, that was good. I'm like, yeah. And then you act honest.
You guys are making me look bad because I make a good bowl of cereal. I make a good, some toast, try not to burn it, put some butter on it, but I can't step up to I got to step my game up, man. This is next topic. I picked the wrong question there.
Technique and ingredients, I'm telling you. I moved to DC, and then it's for like the first time I was away from my family, so I had to learn how to cook. So like it was just one of those things that became a hobby. And one of the things I do is like, because I have a science background, so like if you ever did like a chemistry lab, you're following like a set of steps. You're doing the experiment, you're watching things change, and then you get to eat it at the end. And there's some times where it doesn't work out, but that's part of life. You trial and error, and then you perfect your recipes, and you have your go-tos. And like you said, when someone eats your food and it's like, hey, that was good, it's like, it's a little bit of a flex. Like, all right.
It's also, cooking to me is also expression of love.
Absolutely.
Right? It's service to your family. You know what I mean? So, and, especially when you whip up something special, you're like, it comes from love. So it's funny. I don't know that I truly, really appreciated that because I've heard that said all the time since I was a kid. But when you cook and your family appreciate it, and your family's fed. And you're right. It's a sense of accomplishment. I did this, right? And especially if it was good, you're like, I did this and it was good.
Other side of the coin, because I think we all come from cultures that are very heavy on like food, especially rice and carbs. If my mom's cooking something and she spends a lot of time cooking something and I don't eat the entire plate, that's disrespectful.
Yeah, that's big on the
I just ruined her. Now she's mad because it's almost like she'll get to the point where she'll give me like seconds as I'm not finishing up the first plate. Yeah. So as growing up, it's like I gained weight pretty easy. It's hard to stay in shape or stay under a calorie deficit when you visit your family.
My mother-in-law always like a mound of rice, like two chuletas. It's like all this food. So I try to serve myself real quick before she does. Because if you don't eat it, ¿qué te pasa? You know, what's going on?
Wow, that's amazing because, you know, I remember the times, anytime I visit family, you got to make sure you eat. And matter of fact, I'm glad we're bringing that up because in many cultures, sometimes being skinny is frowned upon as what's the matter, right? If you come in big, they take that as healthy. Oh, you look good, right? Not knowing that you're on a borderline of high blood pressure, diabetes, and everything else. So sometimes, you know, I've witnessed friends who are on that health journey, right? I have a friend of mine, you know, he was coming down because the doctor said, hey, you're borderline for this and that. And he came down in weight. And I witnessed it myself, like coming down in some weight. Then people are like, what's wrong with you? You're skinny. You're like, hold on, I feel good, right? And my friend was like feeling good, but then he felt bad about it. And he said, oh, if we start eating now, fast forward, diabetes, a couple other things. But there's a stigma of thinking that, you know, the bigger you are, the healthier you are in certain cultures.
I'll point out something that I observed, like when we're back home in South India and you have chickens running around, a lot of people who would eat the chickens, you know, they stayed healthy. That was their normal meal. They immigrate to America. And the size of a 1-year-old, 2-year-old chicken in India gets to a certain point, they raise it. But in America, because of the mass production of food that's required, they'll pump a 6-month-old chicken with growth hormones and water and steroids and all this stuff. So when people immigrate from where they come from to America, eating the same diet, they start to gain weight faster than they did back home. So the rules that apply to them back home, that I would just walk around and eat this and I'll be fine, there is a knowledge gap and a health gap that happens to a lot of people that immigrate here because they're like, I never had this challenge before. My grandparents never had this challenge before. It's almost like, is there a problem? Like genetically, my entire bloodline was raised through India. So like my great-grandparents never had kimchi before, or, you know, they never had like lumpia before. Like my body is now processing food that genetically I never had to like process before. So there comes to that point where you have to understand how your body reacts to things and then moving forward accordingly. That's why like certain diets thrive a lot better than just the standard American diet. Just understanding what goes into your system and how you're processing.
So you mentioned all the stuff they pump into the chickens and God knows what else with cows and everything else. But how you broke down how it affects you physically. Does it affect you mentally or emotionally?
I think how you eat definitely affects you emotionally. I think, and again, I think it's because things start layering, right? You eat, I love ice cream, I love sweets. If I eat too much sweets, I get into diabetes, I'm gonna gain more weight that I shouldn't be gaining, getting visceral fat, which is bad for you. So I think those things start layering. And now I'm feeling bad because I don't look as good as I wanna look, right? Because I got this visceral fat, now I don't look as good. And you know what? I'm already this big, so why the heck, why not don't have some more? I'm already here, so, and at that point, if at any one of those steps, if we're like, okay, I'm eating too much ice cream, if I tell somebody, and I'm using ice cream, right? It could be anything. If somebody intervenes or plants the seed in my head, or I tell somebody, hey, you think I'm doing this too much? And I'm asking for help, right? At any one of those steps, I could start working to mitigate a lot of those things. A tool that I think is so severely underutilized, and please jump in. When I was in school, in 8th grade and up, the girls who I felt had it together were the girls that had journals. Girls that wrote down their emotions, guys we didn't journal so much, but who the ideas, the people they liked, the silly stuff. The girls that journals to me always felt like they always had it together. They were a little different, felt a little more mature.
I can't stand Edwin.
Exactly.
It's like a burn book.
And that makes sense, right? The reason that journaling is so important, and I journal every day, either electronically or do it old school paper and pencil. The reason I journal is because when we think about things, they float in our heads. And it's hard for us to kind of pinpoint what we're trying to get to, right? It's hard. And we'll just start thinking about something and then we'll forget about it. Then it'll come back to us. It'll be a theme that floats in our heads. But if we write it down, we're able to process, right? We're able to go somewhere, even if it's just an outlet to let go of whatever we're carrying, right? It just makes you better equipped to deal with your own emotions and get yourself, and also ideas. The CEOs that are successful, you know, they talk about journaling. They talk about writing things down, having a plan, right? And they're not talking about a plan in their head. They actually sit down and write down what they want to do. When you go to these seminars, they'll be like, write down what your goals are. Write this down. Write this down.
5-year strategic plan.
Right.
2 years.
It's about putting it in paper so you can digest it, understand it.
Because in weightlifting, there's this phrase called the mind-muscle connection. Because you have to synchronize a little bit. And, you know, a goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you're not able to put it into a process, then there's a disconnection. And a lot of times, I'm hyper ambitious. So like I have to have I like regiment. I have the opposite effect on vacation. If I'm relaxing too much, I get stressed. So, it's only because like I feel like when you are able to conceptualize what you need to get done and itemize it, it increases the probability that you're going to achieve your goals at a faster pace versus dead fish go with the flow. If you're just floating around, you're going to start getting frustrated and discouraged and ultimately, you know, abandon your plans and your goals because you're going to feel like, oh, I'm getting frustrated because I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that. But those little victories do add up, and that's very important.
And I also think that people, when you hear writing things down, journaling, people automatically think you're writing War and Peace. Sometimes I write one sentence that kind of sums up my day. And sometimes it's just one word. It's probably a curse word. You know what I mean? And that kind of sums up my day. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to sit down and do these big,
so
pages.
You know, you may not have the answer to this, but, you know, in the day and time that we live today, not everybody wants to grab a pen and journal, right? Are there apps out there now where you could just drop your thoughts or some notes, or are there different apps out there like for food or for mental health or thoughts?
So the mental health apps that we have right now, I wouldn't recommend to anybody. I think that eventually we're going to get there. I just think they're really more. I think if you have a behavior trying to change, those mental health apps can be helpful. But as far as
can someone, if they're not wanting to write or jot something down, can they speak into?
I was about to say that. Yeah. I have plenty of video journals where I just sat there and just spoke my stuff. I have a lot of videos because I have a lot of those things are things that I was just talking while I was walking, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna post it, right? I do have those things. There's also plenty. If you have an Apple product, if you have an iPhone, you got a free journaling app on there, and you can set it up to. It's pretty dynamic. You can set it up so you can have prompts that you want to have. You can set up any kind of way you want. I have this journaling app called Day One, and I just love it. It also hooks up to my Instagram, so if I have a picture, it'll come over, and then I can just write what I was doing at the time or thinking about. When you open it up, it automatically gives you a prompt So if you don't know what you want to write about, there's a prompt, and you can just write whatever you want, or you can set it up like you want. There's sometimes that I want to write about my goals, and there's certain prompts that I want to have, and I'm kind of repeating them. I'm trying to figure something out, right? So I'll write kind of similar things. So I would say, yeah, you can record it. You can just put your thoughts down somewhere where you can go back and kind of revisit it.
And that was not a promo for Apple. It can be if you want to sponsor Domino Dialogues.
You struck something in me where you talked about someone's on their phone the whole time, and if you eat like 2 scoops of ice cream or 2 spoons of ice cream, it's not the worst. But if you eat it all the time, same thing with fried chicken, moderation. Like if you're consuming junk food so much, what happens to your body? It starts to like sluggish, slow down. You don't feel that great. Same thing with mental consumption. When you're going through content and you're consuming all this junk content, yeah, it feels good. It might be nice here and there, but you find yourself doom scrolling. You find yourself berated with fight videos and cursing this and that. What eventually happens to you is that you also get bogged down. Same way you're eating a bunch of junk, you're consuming a lot of junk. So getting it out and putting into a space where it's like healthy and protected, that's key as well. Like you have to do that just as well for mental as it is physical.
Yeah, since you brought up social media, I think it's important. Like honestly, if you're a parent, no child under 16 should be on social media. The data that's out showing how it is harming children, especially women, girls, are being hurt so much by social media. A child under 16 shouldn't be in the social media. And also, cultivate your social media. You can make your social media what you want it to be. Eliminate all the things you don't want. If you're a TikToker, you like going to TikToks, you have to search for videos that you want to watch, the things you're interested in. And you have to watch it for about a week or two. And then those are the videos that they'll be recommending to you. Right? So you cultivate these things. You don't have to, constantly be bombarded by the media, right? You don't, bad news.
Speaking of that, social media and just media period, and in the world we live in today, how is it affecting our families, the culture, which I believe folks are walking around silently depressed, confused, scared. How do we as a people, or can you give anyone that is viewing this episode today, can you give advice on how can someone plant a positive seed within their family? Because right now, it's difficult sometimes to go into now that sacred time we spoke about earlier, the sacred time of eating together, right? It's a powerful thing. I use that too, even with my staff. Once in a while, I might take a certain department out, or everybody, we go sit down and eat, because there's something about breaking bread, right? And it's positive, right? Even with coworkers that don't get along, there's something about that moment where they're getting along, we're toasting and we're eating, right? But now I feel as though that sacred moment is being infiltrated by all this negativity. Yeah. So do you have any advice for families that are trying to figure out, because now we're at a time where, because I don't want to get into politics, but it falls in, I don't want to get into even religion or anything else, but we're living in a time where our families are at each other's throats. Our families are not speaking to each other. Our families are angry, right? Life is never promised to anyone the next second, 15 minutes, or the next day. And before you know, if someone's gone, you never got a chance to, how do we just give that advice to anyone watching? Because the mental health in our families right now, and it plays a part, again, going back to our physical, is there any advice from you too? Just something that folks could use, or someone even a child that's watching, right? A child, 12, 13 years old, they might be the leader in the family, where they could step in and say, hey, can we have a sit down without discussing these topics? I don't know. I'm just asking the two professionals I have here.
There's a TED Talk by Cheryl Turkle that says that we're the most connected, but we're alone. So if you had an auditorium and you had the adults walk in and the teenagers walk in, and teenagers sit on one side, adults walk on the other. Teenagers, they open up their phone, they're watching videos, they're scrolling, blah, blah, blah. The adult side, they're turning around, talking to each other, yapping it up, connecting just randomly. And that's like the generation that no longer exists anymore, where people used to talk to one another in person. So what happens is that digitally, we have a wealth of information. We have access to you can learn anything you want right now at your phone and in your hands, but you're using that tool and you're focusing on the wrong consumption of information. And my advice is that I think that a lot of companies thrive off of you being addicted to screens, which turns into, well, what gets you addicted? Negative bias. People like negativity, they're drawn to it, so they're pushing negativity. So I believe that most of the stuff you see online, they're not even real people. They're just AI bots or farms that they chirp stuff out or they rile people up. So you watching that on your phone, you think that's how the world is. You think everybody's in this echo chamber screaming and yelling at each other. When you walk outside and you actually engage with people, like real people, and you connect and you try to find commonality, then you start to be like, wait a second, like that's not what the internet told me was happening. I'm pulling up here and people are actually like in a good mood, vibing and stuff like that. So my advice is put down the phone, put down the screen time, and actually engage with your neighbors and your loved ones. You find out you have more in common than you do apart.
You deal with men. No, thank you for that. You deal with so many young folks, you know what I mean, from all ages, right? And, you know, just leading your way, just speaking on this, because we do notice, and I know you see this, that there's a lot of families that expect you to fix everything, right? When a lot of things can be fixed at home. So he just mentioned, like, you go to a house and nobody's eating together, right? The kid is upstairs with his plate, like you just said, someone's over here on the other side. No one eats together anymore, right? They just wait for Thanksgiving, you know, instead of that everyday moment. And that was something that was big in the culture where everyone eats together.
Yeah.
So,
First of all, Dr. Keefe is absolutely right about social media and negative bombing us. But I don't want anybody to feel like something's wrong with them because they get pulled into this negativity. Biologically, for survival reasons, we are attracted to negative because that's supposed to tell us something's wrong. We're supposed to be more aware. Now, we're not making the right choices once we become aware, right? Back in our hunter-gatherer phase, it's time to run. I don't know these people. There's danger. They ran. That was the point of that. So the reason that we feel so strongly to this negative stuff, this negativity, it's not our fault. All right. It's not but now that we know better, we have to do better. When it comes especially to children, it's been my experience. And what I've learned is that when we see a child who's maladapting behaviors or who we think are behaving badly, we say, what's wrong? Right? We don't ask what happened. Behavior is a language. And if a behavior is a language, then it has to be taught. And children behave the way they know how to. When they know better, they do better. Sometimes parents do come in, and if we're doing an outpatient session, they really don't want to be part of the session. And with me, you have to be every other week, the parent has to be there. Because the goal is really to build that attachment. And once the child has attachment, a strong attachment, secure attachment to the parent, they start listening more. Because I want my dad to be proud of me, right? I want my teacher to give me praise, right? So once we build this attachment, we're able to deal with some of the other stuff. It's never really, all the issues that I deal with children aren't really the issues. Children aren't the issues. They're the symptoms of what's going on around them.
going back to, and forgive me when I say this, and I hope I don't catch any backlash for this, right? Anybody remember the dog whisperer?
Yes.
Cesar Millan,
Yes.
right? It wasn't the dogs, right?
No.
It was the owners, right?
Always.
And, you know, it's kind of like we as a society get lazy, right? And I'm nowhere comparing our children to any animal or dog, but it's kind of like one of my sons, Elijah, I was just proud of him this morning watching him go to work. He's an electrician now. But I remember when he was younger in school, he was so intelligent that he would finish his work before everybody. So when the lingo was thrown around like medication, like hold on, right? So at that time, me and his mother will make sure she will make sure that he had a good meal in the morning. I took him outside. We had this little thing where I had to try to run him around the block, right, to get him a little tired. And he went into school, and we were able to get him through high school and being productive. Which I'm not against medication, but medication is not the answer or the cure for all.
Medication should be the last resort. It should be the last resort in mental health situations. And when we're talking about physical things, then no, that's something different. But as far as mental health, I'm not a doctor, right? A medical doctor. But I work with psychiatrists. And when I see the psychiatrist prescribe at our agency, it's typically because the child is a behavioral threat to himself or somebody else. Meaning if it's a situation where they're hyperactivities and jumping off tables and stuff like that, they can hurt themselves. They're like, okay, let's try this medication. It's not because the child is being disrespectful. It's not because they can't sit still. If they're being safe, we tend not to prescribe medication. If they're not being dangerous, or if they're not potential for them to be harmed by their behaviors.
I'm ready to dig in. Now it's going to get it. Do you feel as though, especially in the Latinos and the migrant communities, that there are folks that want to take advantage of just medicating our kids up?
It's just easier. It's easier. It takes work. If I'm working with a child who's hyperactive, it takes work. I have them for an hour in my office, right? It takes me, I have this child in particular right now that I'm working with, I'm very proud of. We went from literally being only able to do 2 minutes of work at a time, where now he's sitting for 15 minutes in the office. And now we're starting to see that skill translate to school. But it took us 6 months to get there. It took us 6 months to get there, right? But it's hard work. The parent had to be in. The parent had to repeat things. The parent had to be frustrated with having to repeat things, right? And have that faith that what we're doing was working.
But we need parents involved.
Always.
It's so important to see, just a message out there to parents that are watching, when it comes to our kids and our children, their health and mental health. It takes both, even if you're separated, even if you're divorced, agree on something. Yeah. Agree on your child's mental health, agree on your child's physical health. Just want a big shout out to, they're behind the cameras right now, Abigail and Eric. I watched these two parents pour into their children. Eric's a fireman, he's running around, and when Abigail's running around, you see them taking turns, dropping their kids off, taking them to programs, and you could sometimes look at their faces, see that they're tired, but they step in and still step up. And one of the things that we do at the Lighthouse when we do these community events, it's not just to have a community event to say we got numbers, is to bring people back out again, to not be AI, right? To actually communicate and talk to each other. And there's so much magic, and you're in so many pictures. And when you're in so many of our pictures that people are filming, and what you will see in some of the pictures is you would sit there with your children, both of you would sit there with your children, and we catch you eating together. You're at the food truck, and now you're sitting down, and it's such a priceless photo or video to see that, where, okay, you're around everyone, but you're enjoying that moment, just sitting, nobody's talking. I noticed that you're just sitting there and you helping the kid out, giving her some food, and just really enjoying that family bond.
Can I comment on that? It's so Mr. Rogers, the famous Mr. Rogers Neighborhood, right? He retired in 93, I think, maybe. He was doing an interview with, I think it was Charlie Rose. And in the interview, back then, he was saying, we have access to all this information, but no quiet. We have access to all this information, and we feel like we have to fill the space all the time. The power that comes from sitting quietly and eating as a family, not needing to fill the space is already filled, right? There's power in quiet. There are times when I'm in sessions and something happens and it's uncomfortable and it's palpable and nobody's saying anything. We're just sitting with the experience, just letting it come in. And we don't do that enough. We feel like we always have to have it. Even if we're trying to help somebody, we want to give them the answer. This is what you got to do to fix yourself, right? We don't just sit there and listen and just hold the space for them to be able to let that out.
One of the underrated superpowers is the ability to be bored. And like before,
I'm sorry. We
gotta get to it again.
Listen, no, I want you to finish that. That's called a copy cool moment, right? Yes. Can you repeat that real quick?
Sometimes the underrated superpower is just the ability to be bored.
That's a copy cool moment, and I'm gonna cheat right now. Go before.
So if you pull up to a red light, what do people do? They take out their phone and start scrolling because it's like they have a little bit of time before the light turns green. And then it gets to the point where, are we just so afraid to be in our heads and our own thoughts?
Or like on the toilet. Nobody could be on the toilet without it.
not to get too, but back in the day, if you go into the toilet without your phone, what do? You read the air freshener. Oh, the back of the air freshener. Start counting towels.
Notice the leak in the ceiling. The tiles.
So now it's almost like people are like afraid to get locked into their own heads. Like, and then you guys meant just go all the way back from the beginning when you're like, man, you're feeling so mad today. Why aren't we allowed to like experience our emotions and let it be where it is and meet the emotions for where they are? We're in the medical community, we're going away from what we call chemical restraints, where like if you're sedated, like if someone has a behavioral issue, just give them a pill and then watch them almost turn into a zombie. But what you're doing is you're not allowing that person to process the stimulus of what they're feeling in the world around them. And over time, like, why do we as a society do that? Where we numb ourselves from experiencing things and we just want to like, bury stuff and I can't, blah, blah, blah. And then you let it go around where you're walking through life just sedated in general. Like you're not letting yourself experience it.
Pretty interesting. I was with my youngest boy even yesterday, but we went out to eat and I decided, let me put this phone down, and I just enjoyed looking at him chew, right? Looking at him smile, looking at him go back up, and I was in that moment just watching every gesture, right? And listening to anything he had to say. My sons, a couple times they will pick out a movie. If we go to the movies together, I'm okay saying, yes, I like the movie because I want to be able to sit there. And I find myself looking down at all my boys instead of the movie. I'm enjoying that, right? To see their facial expressions, seeing them laugh. It does something for me mentally.
You know what freaks people out now? Eye contact. People don't so one of the little tricks that you do is like pay attention to people's eye colors and then talk to them and make eye contact. Some people they start shying away from that because they're just not used to that engagement anymore.
There's a saying that men have the best conversations while they're driving because they don't have to look at each other. And it's one of the reasons I think that so many conversations come up into the domino table, as culturally speaking, when folks growing up, you hear about all the gossip and the rumors, the stressors around the domino table as a kid because the men were just talking without having to look at each other. Barbershops, yeah. Yes.
As a therapist.
It goes back to the machismo thing.
There are generational gaps that we need to figure out, especially with millennials and not so much millennials. Millennials are seem like they're really starting to get it now. But their best friends live on PlayStation, right? When we grew up, our best friend lived around the corner, down the street. You know what I mean?
You find the house where the bikes are at.
Yeah.
Can you come out?
Exactly.
I'm punished today.
Right?
What you do?
Exactly. Their best friends now are, they never met before. And I don't mean to say that those relationships are not important, right? That's not what I mean to say. But we're built for connection, right? We're built for connection. We're built to look at each other. The most powerful speakers, when you're sitting there and there's a room with 200 people and you still feel like they're talking to you, they're the ones that look in the room and pick a person and look at them as they're saying every word. And you feel like he sees me, they see me, right? It's a speaking trick, yes, but also it's grounded on the fact that we look for that connection.
I can't speak. I'm a speaker. I travel across the country, even sometimes globally. It's hard for me to write a speech, so I usually put down talking points. And because there's been many times that I wrote a speech, spent all night working on it just to submit it. I react off energy. I have to feel people in the room. I cannot speak if I'm not feeling that moment.
That's why you're a good speaker.
No, thank you. But it's something that is like a default. Some folks, they just like a robot. They got to go in and they're reading something. I have to watch like a fly on the wall sometimes before I get up there and speak and see what's the vibe, what's the energy to get out there.
That's the difference between street smart and book smart. Where book smart, you might be able to regurgitate premeditated information. Street smart, you're reacting to the environment around you. And I know you're very, very street smart. And that's where like you have to like live and die off of what you're reading from the energy around you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We did a trip to New York. We went last week, right?
Yeah.
Was it last week? And so it was pretty interesting. We were walking into a studio. So you have a Puerto Rican, Haitian guy here, Indian, a Jew, and an Italian. We rode up together. Yeah, well, there was a lot of bad jokes in the car, but we walked into a studio. We happened to walk into a program where it was called Guns Down, Life Up. And it was a bunch of young men sitting there and a couple of young ladies. And these young folks have been either a victim of gunshot wounds or violence. And we were able to just, within maybe 30 seconds, to connect. And it wasn't about, oh, let's try to hype up and talk to these young men. It was something that happened with all of us right away. And it was good dialogue going back and forth. And it was something about being real, that human connection. I'm not talking to you online. I'm not sitting across the table from you, asking you questions. We were standing in their presence, speaking to them.
There's something about, look, we don't follow leaders that know everything. We don't. That's obvious. We follow leaders that are honest, right? Not that they don't lie, but they're honest. When they're talking to you in the moment, it feels real. It rings true. The experience is something you can relate to. Most of the time, kids are great at it. Street smart adults can feel it when people are just bullshit and trying to get through, right? You kind of feel it. But the people who we will listen to are the people who are making an honest effort. By what I mean by honest is not that they're purposely trying, but they're not trying to win a discussion, right? They're not trying. They are honestly processing what you're giving them. In therapy, in my mind, I know what the answer is. And I know, because I've seen this before, I know what they're getting wrong. And I know if I gave them the advice, they would never follow it and it would never work. So my goal is to get you there, for us to take this journey together, to figure out how to get there, right? And when you let the person get there, that's when the change happens. We follow leaders that take the journey with us, right? That's why people related. A lot of people did not agree with Obama's politics, but when he spoke, they respected him because you felt like he was taking you. He was in the journey with you. I know what it feels like when this happens. When he shed a tear after Sandy Hook, you know what I mean? Those are experiences that felt honest to us. When he stood out in the freezing rain for 2 hours, when the bodies were being brought back from, I forgot where it was coming back from. Those are things that, we're like, I don't know his politics, but he stood there in the rain and his salute was sharp. You connect with that. That felt honest to you.
That could be a double-edged sword too, because someone could tap into the hate and identify with that hate and take advantage of that.
And that's fine, but they're not.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But the counteract that, right, is you have to accept that everybody's not going to be an honest broker. You know, in life and communication, everybody's not going to be, and so you have to know when to say, okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is this is a great conversation. We could go on another 3 hours. I mean, on this, because there's so much to really. I love when I'm in a room with some folks that just have so much in here, right? And my advice, because this is how I want to end this, asking both of you to give some advice from your perspective, to share some love into this world, and how folks can follow you or find you, or what you, any projects you're working on, you're more than welcome to speak on that. But I just want to say, on my end to everyone, I try to place myself around people, whether I agree or disagree. I want to hear people. I want to hear their thoughts, like you said earlier. I want to hear everything you have to say, and let's talk about it. Let's have a discussion. But you can learn so much from people. You can learn from so many different people, different cultures, different backgrounds, and just try to figure it out. And also, I find myself every day questioning why I feel the way I feel when I'm angry about something or someone, or if there's a vibe. Because I'm not going to question that person why I don't like you. I got to question myself. Why is it that I'm disagreeing with you? Why is it that I don't like you? You know, and, you know, we've been across those stories before. You know what? I never liked you, but you came out to be a good guy. And then, you know, that's, you know, I'm older now. I don't go across. I really have to get to know someone. So any advice you want to give to anyone, and also how can folks follow you?
I'm easy to find on Facebook, Charles DeLeon. You can just pop up. You know, I don't know that I have, I think advice is so intentional and direct, right? I always dislike when people say, do this in the general terms, because depending on the situation, it may not work. But one thing that I think that we need to do is find that quiet, right? Find time to unplug and be intentional. You know, I do a practice.
What does unplug mean for folks that are watching?
Sure, that means put the phone down, don't touch your TV, you know, just sit in quiet. It doesn't have to be for 30 minutes, it can be 10 minutes, it can be 5 minutes, it can be 1 minute, but just sit in quiet for a moment. Allow your thoughts to go where they want to go. And I do a breathing exercise. When we exhale, our body calms down, right? When we do those short inhales, we have to ventilate, we're ready for action. But when we exhale, we're kind of slowing ourselves down, right? So I sit down and I close my eyes, and I try to calm my nervous system down. I just take 2 short deep breaths, hold it for a couple beats, and push it out slow. And I try to focus on how the air is in my chest and how I'm blowing it out. And if my thoughts go into work, I acknowledge that's where my thought went. Because we can't control our brains. Our thoughts go, we can't control our brains, right? Don't think of a pink elephant. Pink elephant, right? You have no choice. That's okay. Acknowledge that happened and come back to the breathing. Do that for like a minute a day. Try to work your way up to 10 minutes. But if you do that 1 minute a day, you will notice a difference in how you feel afterwards.
You know, I may not be a cook like these two gentlemen, but I make a great old fashioned, right? And the reason I'm bringing that up, which I'm not promoting alcohol, but you know, the reason I bring that up, I have my moments where I sit down and it's my ritual, right? You know, how you mix it and smoke it, and then I sit down, I unplug, right? And there's something about that one sip, and when I sit down, I breathe. And it's like, you know, it's only 2 ounces, but that 2 ounces will take maybe 20 to 30 minutes to drink, because you're just taking every sip. You're thinking about the taste of what it is, and you're not thinking about anything else but that right there, saying, that's good.
And that's the goal. You're being intentional with that time, right? You're allowing yourself to unwind. We all have, at one point in our life, had these unwind practices that we did, right? We just weren't intentional with it. And maybe you didn't realize you were being intentional with it, but you are. That is exactly, you don't need another tool if you have a tool that works, that kind of helps you just, you know what, I'm good now. The day was what it was, but now I feel better.
Unplugging, not only just from devices, is it okay to say, and again, I don't know if I'm opening up a can of worms, is it okay to unplug from people? What I mean by that, certain family members, right? Because I love my family. I love people, period. But there are certain family members and friends that I got to limit my time with them, just like a phone, because everything that comes out of them, I'm like, okay, I got to see, because it jumps, like that it's contagious. That energy is contagious. So I start thinking about my own trauma or things that make me feel a certain way. So if you visit a family member and they're like, oh my, everything is just negative, just everything, and I'm like, I love you, I got to see you later on, and you go. It's not that you're trying to ignore, but so, is it okay to unplug from that?
I think that's a cultural thing, right? Because we come from a culture where family is so important, and we've probably been told, he's family, he's your brother, he's your cousin, still your mom. We heard these things. I think, number one, if it's really causing you a lot of distress, it's definitely, first of all, we're not talking about abuse. That's different, right? That's an automatic cutoff. Yeah. But if somebody's causing you so much stress in your life that is really changing your mood, not only is it okay, it's mandatory. You got to build those boundaries so you can keep your cup full.
Because we getting into that, because we come from, because you mentioned it goes right into what Dr. Key was speaking earlier, like you feel as though you're responsible for everyone. And then you take this burden on to just, here we go, I got to hear all this drama, not knowing is just breaking you down.
If you're aware of us being composed of so many like electrical signals going through our bodies, like we're essentially batteries, and you have to be mindful when you leave somebody, did they drain you of your energy or did they refuel you? And when you hang out with your boys, after a long time, you come back just so relaxed, and that's the recharging effect right there. So be mindful, and then of people that you can't avoid, the boundaries are a great thing, because it's like, I'm gonna be here in this space, but I have to like cut it off and respect it so that it doesn't get to the point where it like takes me out.
Do you have to pick up the phone once you're home and unplugging? Do you have to respond to a text message?
If it's your wife, yeah. Other than that,
oh yeah,
the only person.
That's
when I'm home.
You worry about your health.
Yeah. The only person I respond to, if I'm being intentional, if I'm like, I'm not, this is my time, is my wife. And then my kids know, my kids are adults though, but my kids know if it's an emergency, I'm going to respond. But if it's not, don't bother me. Because the only person that can bother me at that point is my wife. And usually it's because we have the relationship where she respects that it's my time. So if she's coming, it's because she needs something.
I'm the oldest of like, the three boys. So like I kind of grew up with that mindset of like everybody needs me at all times. And I'm like the plug in every like venture that I have going on. So a lot of times it's like I can't afford to like put my phone on do not disturb, because me intervening and saying 2 or 3 things could affect the trajectory of people's decision tree. Whereas like if I just went away for a 4-hour nap, now it's like a bigger mess for me to clean up on the back end. So I'm not it's one of those things where like the people who know, like doctors make the worst patients, like the ones that know the right answers, like I am fully aware that I like burn myself out by being too available to everyone around me. But then I look back at like heavy is the head that wears the crown. Like this is kind of like the life that I decided years ago that I want to live. I want to be that person that can intervene and help people out. But, I have to be very mindful of how I recharge when I do get the time so that I don't burn out.
And I think you can do that. This is what I mean by you give advice that's like a rule for everybody. He's aware of what he's doing, right? So he's able to do it. And I know that when he gets to the point where he feels like he can't take it no more, he's going to respond on, he's going to act on it. He's not going to continue it because he's aware that he's living a lifestyle that's really hard to sustain. You know, but he has to do it for right now. But since you're aware of it, you'll be able to catch yourself. And I'm sure you already have tools in place to make sure that you don't burn yourself, because if you don't put the oxygen mask on yourself, right, you can't do it for anybody else.
I might turn this into a therapy session. I might have to like lay down and just have thank you for bringing that up, because I deal with that, as far as like I have these different group chats, right? And one of my text groups is about 40 something men. Every morning I try my best, even when I'm in a bad mood, to send something positive out, because I know these men. I know their backgrounds, and I have this little joke, it's like protecting the realm, right? Because if they're in a bad mood, I don't want to be held responsible, which I'm not. But I'm like, man, I could have said something positive. Because if they notice that if I'm out of town, if I go a couple of days without sending something, like, hey, what happened? What's going on? And that is a weight. That is a weight, because if there's moments where I don't want to just get up and text or send it out, but it's kind of like you're that go-to person. So it's trying to figure out that balance to protect yourself also, and not feel guilty, because I experienced where I didn't respond a couple of times, and someone you love commits suicide, and then it kind of like breaks you down. You're like, man, if I picked up, if I did this, or I responded, where that's a whole nother conversation getting into, where you start saying, there's something you just can't control, right? So just to wrap up and go back a little, like you guys mentioned that I went to Philly public schools, so like all my friend groups were like the United Nations, like we just all came from every little corner. Like it wasn't the fact that we were Albanian or Guyanese or whatever. It's just we were all socioeconomically around. We're waiting for the same bus. So we grew up with the mindset of like, if you respect me, I respect you. Just don't be a dickhead. Sorry for the language. So yeah, it's just don't be a dickhead, and we're cool. So I feel like my company is now a reflection of my philosophy, where I know everybody's like, oh, make money, get your clients, blah, blah, blah. But, pushing Pristine Home Care, my mindset and mantra is like, how can I help you? So even if another company can provide better care, by all means, like we'll encourage you to go there. We don't look for ways to disrupt someone's life or their happiness. We just want to be a tool and an asset and guidance for like, that's why we become an extension of your family. Like just like a cousin that you call up, like we help you with LIHEAP, we help you with electrical, we help you with food stamps. Like we'll find different access to programs and provide you information without the end result of like making just pure money off of it, but knowing that our community is good and we're now intervening in someone's life and giving them access to better quality of life that they didn't think that they were able to get to. Because when I was growing up, I thrived and grew off of the community that took care of me and my family, that put me into this position of success, which now I am dedicating my life to turn around and help as many people as possible climb their way out of pits and any negative situations that they find themselves in.
So Philadelphia is where we're at. Philadelphia is where this is filmed. You were born and raised in Philadelphia?
Born and raised.
What part of Philly are you repping, and why?
You know what? I always say North Side because I think when I was a teenager, Tough Crew was out. North Side, North Side, North Side, North Side, North Side. But I grew up in West Kensington. I grew up, where I grew up? I grew up at Howard and Lehigh. I know those townhouses on Howard and Lehigh. That's where I grew up. And I went to church at Norris Square on Susquehanna and Hancock with Reverend Gage, was my pastor. So that's the area I grew up at. My girlfriend lived in 3rd and Indy, so I used to go to 3rd and Indy all the time. So that was kind of the situation growing up. In the 90s, in the 80s when I was a kid, it was cool. In the 90s was a little hairy because, we had the open air drug market. So every time you went to a different block, it was a different set. So I try to be friendly, at least with everybody, so I can at least walk the places.
Make it to your girlfriend on
yes,
yeah.
Yes, everything was cool. And most of the time,
you grew up 2 blocks from the Lighthouse Community Center.
I used to go to the lighthouse all the time. I used to go swimming in the lighthouse. I learned to swim at the lighthouse. They taught me how to swim.
Amazing.
Yeah, they taught me how to swim in the lighthouse. It was $2 for the year to join. Right, so you got a card.
What color was your card?
It was orange. I had the orange card because I was still underage.
You know, we still have cards at the Lighthouse from members from 1900, 1899, 1930. So if anyone is interested to learn a little more about history, reach out because we'll take you on a little tour and show you some historic moments.
The pool was always so cold. The Lighthouse pool was always cold, but it was nice and long, right? And
8.5 feet deep.
So it was nice and long. So what they would do is when they first opened up the pool, the people who couldn't swim, you will get there a day early. So if the pool opened up on the on the 6th of June or whatever, you went there on the 5th, and they taught you to swim. So who couldn't swim, you would go there and they would teach you how to swim. So that for a few summers, that was the spot. You just go there.
As a kid, I thought the folks that live in those townhouses had it made. We always looked at you guys, and that townhouse is like, wow, they got it made. They blew up.
You know what? I didn't realize that until after I moved out. I never realized it was Section 8 housing, right, for us, and I didn't realize how blessed I was to grow up because they're townhomes. So I didn't realize how blessed I was to be living there. I think when I was living there, I kind of took it for granted. It was after I left when I realized that these homes would, and at the time, if we were paying the actual rent, would be over $1,000. So we were blessed to live there, and we had a good life living there. Right? Listen, we were poor too, but never missed a meal. We had gifts under the trees. Every birthday we had cake. We played kickball outside. I could go anywhere where my mom's voice would carry. So when she went, Charles, I had to be home in 60 seconds. You know what I mean? So, and I miss those days now.
Did you ever play halfies?
Yeah. On Waterloo. We used to go to Waterloo and play halfies.
That was the cheapest sport, right? You take a tennis ball or any type of ball that was old, they cut it in half, take the broomstick, and matter of fact, we might start a halfie league here at the Lighthouse, bring something back.
It's cool. You don't have to be very athletic. It's good. Third and Indy, and I hear Edwin always call the hood the good lands, and I appreciate that. But the term the Badlands came because of Third and Indy. There was a beat writer for the Philadelphia Daily Inquirer, named David Zucchino. And he did like an expose of, it was like, I don't know, it was a big expose when they did a drug bust on 3rd and Indiana. And he called it the Badlands. And they just got nicknamed the Badlands from that. So it was a rough day, but I'm not gonna say it wasn't. And it could be hairy at times. But ironically,
there used to be a group and a gang right up the block, right off of 3rd and Indy and 4th and Indy called AFW.
Yes.
All official riders. Shout out to you guys because many of them who survived and made it out of that neighborhood are just living just great productive lives. Shout out to Pay. I know he watches this, man. I'm so impressed with this gentleman who came from that neighborhood, truck driver, family man. So just big props to all those guys from the AFW crew on Indiana.
Yeah, but so I realize now why that happened. At the time, I was just like, what the hell's going on? You know what I mean? But when you're disenfranchised, when you don't have access to jobs, when you don't have access to education, you're going to survive, right? And you're going to figure that out any way you can. So when sometimes life can't be so black and white. When I was a kid, I'm like, you're a bad guy because you're dealing drugs. Right? As an adult, I'm like, he was dealing drugs because he had to feed his family. You know, I could see that side now. Not that I'm endorsing it, but I understand there's a humanity component that we always want to gloss over. You know? But growing up, in North Philly, in West Kensington, and being around that area, for a lot of times I felt safe. I used to get in a lot of trouble and a lot of fights. But back then, you would get in a fight, you knew you were going home. You never felt like you weren't going to go home. Maybe once or twice, if somebody, you were at Kaboom's and somebody brought a gun, or if you were
going, you know what, I'm gonna challenge you on something right now, right? I'm gonna challenge you on something right now when it comes to Indiana and that whole area, right? And this is gonna be a clip. This is gonna be one of those clips. Are you familiar with Camel's Hill?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Camel Hill.
Look, Eric just raised his hand in the back. Camel's Hill. Please describe Camel's Hill for the audience.
So Camel Hill is on the train tracks. So the way we would get in through there, I think we would go up America Street and go over the trestle. And then there were these two big mounds. So we would call it Camel Hill. And you could ride your bike over it. You know, the guys used to have their dirt bikes out there. There used to be a playground. We used to play there all the time.
Unofficial playground.
Unofficial playground.
You had to cross that bridge without falling through any of those.
The trestle, because the trestle was all broken up.
Yeah.
So you had to watch where you were walking. It was not.
If you have a Camel's Hill story, please comment on that.
It was not a safe place.
It was not a safe place. Yeah, the bike riding. Some people got their first kiss down there with their little girlfriends and stuff like that, hanging out. Look, Eric's nodding. But Camel's Hill was that place. And then also Fifth and Allegheny was the place where everybody went swimming. That was our closest swimming pool. So I was originally from Hancock and Canberra. So we will exit, like we'll go up Indiana, make a right turn on American into the railroad tracks to take a shortcut. And it was dangerous. You could easily fall right through the street crossing that one bridge. But we would go there just to go swimming at Fifth and Allegheny. And I don't know if you remember that still horse that will burn the crap out of you because of the sun.
Yes, I forgot about the still horse.
Please comment on that also. That anybody remembers that still horse at Fifth and Allegheny. I don't know if it's still there. I think they took it down. But that you would come back with a burn mark on your back because you backed up into or you thought you was going to jump on that thing, but the sun was beaming on it. And the things that were unsafe for us, even for the legit playgrounds.
This is why Gen X is so tough, man. Like, we didn't even know how dangerous it was to be doing stuff we were doing. And then they had the, do you remember the park right off of America Street in Jefferson where it was the rocket ship?
Yep, that was off 3rd and North, I believe.
Yes,
3rd and North,
dude, it was a rocket ship that was 2 stories. Yeah. It had 2 slides. You could go up to that second story.
A metal slide.
Bro, you were always flying out of that thing.
And you would get burnt on that metal slide going right down. You know, you screamed on the way down with real screams. It wasn't like joy. It was because you got burnt up. But then you look back up, so I'm going right back up again.
The problem was like, your skin would get, so you would pull your shorts down, right? So you can slide, so it wouldn't pull your skin. But the problem with that, now you're going too fast. So you can't stop yourself. So you just fly it off. And then the rubber part wasn't long enough, so you were always landing in the dirt. It was
so, a lot of folks don't realize that American Street right there, where you see Eastline now and different stores. When I was a kid, it was all rocks, right? And the train would come by, the locomotive. And a lot of us would try to run and jump on the train and catch a ride. Yeah. Now it's just all sorts. Sometimes if I do stop by East if I'm visiting anywhere, I would look out. I was like, man, I wonder what it would feel like to see a train.
Do you remember the American Street Bridge? They had the bridge. They used to cross over. So when the train would go by, they built a bridge over so you could walk over.
Came out on Rocky, I think. One of the Rocky films. I'm not sure. So sorry, we so,
chop it up.
So tell us about your ventures in Philly. You're migrating to Philadelphia, and what was that like?
So we came to America when I was 4 years old in '92, and we moved to Teasdale Street. So we had the apartments at Teasdale Street, which is across from Northeast High School, which ironically, I went to later on. But growing up in like Northeast Philadelphia, bouncing around up and down like Bustleton, the far Northeast, it was great growing up with a group of guys because it's like we played basketball Friday, tackle football Saturday, and baseball Sunday. And we're just like roaming around. I don't know if our parents just didn't like us or whatnot. We didn't have a cell phone, so I don't know where they thought we were. We were just roaming around until we had to like get back home. But, catching the bus or or just trying to find somebody who had a car. But it just kept us like out and about in the area. Like if we went to the malls back in the day, like Franklin Mills or Neshaminy, just kind of popping in there for like movies and stuff like that. But the main thing growing up for us was you just had different houses that you hung out in, the basements. And then we had like their video games. So constantly we're just all like doing that. The football part of it, I look back, I'm like, we played tackle football on grass with no helmets, and we just ran into one another nonstop. And I could see some of the guys now, like running into them. I'm like, yeah, they probably took a lot of hits, and I can see the effects of it now.
We play tackle on the concrete.
I mean, a lot of us could look at our knees and elbows. There's a lot of scars there.
Did you guys ever play Manhunt?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Manhunt was like summertime. It was just like Manhunt, play wire ball, wall ball. We just find like things to do. Just, I don't know, like for most of the guys, we just made things happen around ourselves.
I was thinking about bringing a couple games here this summer to introduce to our youth of drawing with the chalk. What was it, the dead man? You hit the cap.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just going to try to get some folks to reflect on that. Maybe we could capture that on film, because I remember we used to be out there in the street, and then someone by car, and you got to get up, whether you're playing football, whatever it is in the street, you always had that one person car, and you had just.
It's funny because we're talking about kids, their friends are now on the internet, but really, when we're growing up, we have to look for your friends. You will go outside, you'll find one friend, and then all of a sudden, everybody will come out. We figure out. We played, and we had autonomy over what we did, right? So if we played tag, the boundaries is Miss Jessica Carr. That's the boundary. You can't pass that. If you pass that, you hit in the corner. So we had this autonomy that the kids are losing today.
Our boys still have stories that we remember, like Unified, that our buddy Max, we were playing football. He ran a route, did not know where he was going, ran right into the rearview mirror of a car, smashed the car mirror, and we dispersed. That poor guy. Now I'm thinking, like, if some kid ran into my car, I'd probably freak out, be like, who the heck ran into, but like, we're kids.
We used to jump on cars.
Just destroying property like menaces.
We had we're going to end up getting so many clips here, and I guarantee you this one here. Tacony Creek, they used to call that Little
Puerto Rico.
Little Puerto Rico. That was the place that we can afford to go. And families would go out there, set up the picnic, and there was a big sign that says no swimming, right? But meanwhile, if you look in the water, there's a Puerto Rican dad with a sandwich and a beer. Just throw them in. That's how you learn how to swim back then. But it was pretty interesting because we were all out there. The little waterfall, folks were out there. And I have the craziest story with Tacony Creek, and my friend Sam, I'm putting his name out there because he's going to get mad that I told this story. So we started wandering off in the back instead of staying with the family. So there was the little tunnel where the sewage comes out.
Right.
We didn't really understand that was sewage coming out of there. So we try to walk near the water and slip into that tunnel. And my friend slipped back, and I went to grab him. I knew how to swim, but he didn't. We both fell in. So it's difficult for someone who knows how to swim when you got a friend just panicking on you. So we're both drowning right there. And it was pretty deep. Some folks were walking by. They saw us drowning, they pulled us out. We were coughing and, getting the water out of us. And someone told my dad and mom, say, hey, they were back there and they almost drowned. So they made us sit down. So we couldn't go anywhere. Now the cookout and everything was going on. It started raining. Everybody had to rush to their cars. So when we got into the car, my dad says, everybody check your feet. He thought someone stepped on dog shit, right? And everybody's checking their feet. Me and Sam just sitting there because we didn't realize we were drowning in sewage, which was, shit, So he was like, who stepped on shit? Everybody's checking there. One of my aunts leaned over and smelled. It's these two right here. So, we had a shitty day. Sorry, Sam, I had to tell that story.
Yeah, but these stories, like, even when we catch up and, like, we, like, sit around and it's like all that happened because we were just, like, out and about and doing our own thing through Philly. So, like, there's, like, a bond that connects us. That's why, like, my cousins, I didn't realize that not everybody went to school in the morning and had to walk through metal detectors. I mentioned it, and my cousins are like, what are you talking, like, where, you went to the jail? I said, no, I thought that's how it was. Like, you go to the entrance where the guys had one entrance for metal detectors, girls had the other, and then we roamed through and we had, like, other schools coming up to fight and stuff like that, and that just was normal every day. That's also the reason why like we followed the birds that never won, the Eagles, you know, and then now they started winning and now we're obnoxious and everyone's just like, yeah, that's the Philly guy. Like everyone has the like acquired taste, but they appreciate like our bluntness and our grittiness because it's kind of like how we were raised. I don't know how everybody else's childhood was, but there is a unifying effect to like growing up in the same area.
Northeast High School wasn't an easy stop like people thought it was. Yeah. You know, it was kind of it was a good school, but it was rough. Like you said, you know, you had the different schools like any other school back then. It was more of the fair ones. You know, you give a fair one and you like the police siren, you hear it come up, everybody leaves because the cops are coming. But folks, you remember those fair ones. People get out there, you knuckle up and you see each other the next day. You have a black eye, he has a busted lip and folks are on their way. But we have somehow moved into an era of, you know, where there's no more fair ones. It's more of real assaults and attacks. And
yeah, I think, you know, I think part of that is the lack of connection, right, that we talked about, and the desensitivity. Listen, there's no one thing that you could point at and be like, this is the reason, right? There's a combination of things. We call them like the risk factors, right? The positive risk factors, negative risk factors. But there's definitely things that, if they're in place, are likely to happen, right? So if your child isn't being socialized, if all their socialization is online, we're going to develop kids who don't know how to interact, and that's why these apps have become so popular to meet people, right? Because the person on the other side also doesn't know how to interact. It's your phones. Now, what happens is you add that with games like Call of Duty, where you're killing people, Fortnite, where the goal is, you know, to kill somebody maliciously, and that's a joke. You start to desensitize kids when you don't have the protective factors in place, right? Protective factors could be, religion could be a protective factor. You go to church, you have this community. Any community can be a protective factor. A family that eats together for 20 minutes a night, right? In the 90s, there was a huge study done as part of the ACEs study, and they showed that kids that went to church or was part of a church community, and not additionally, but separately, and kids who had families that ate together at least 3 times a night were kids that were most successful, right? They were better in school, they were better at interacting with the peers, they were better regulated. So there's a connection to that we're losing because so much information, we're always busy.
Even the dating scene back then, it was even a little no, I like you, do you like me? Or you have to just
circle yes or no.
Circle yes or no, but also force yourself to speak to someone. Yeah. And you're trying to figure it out, but now it's so easy to talk on text and run game on text. And now they have this chat GPT and hey, so, you know, and now you know you're having some type of a AI intelligence, a really kick game for you, but now when you go meet this person in real life, you're kind of like, she's like, you don't sound like your text messages.
Sorry, son, but my son, man, I realized the disconnect with my son was younger. He was so scared. He had this girl he liked. He was so scared. He was in high school. I'm like, talk to her. He said, what do I say? I'm like, tell her your name, right? Start with that. You know, see what you're interested in. You know, see what kind of movies she likes, kind of books she likes, and then you go from there. He was super scared, super scared. Took him a minute. He built up the confidence to go talk to her. She shot him down. Like, he was like devastated. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, yo, I was turned down at least 10 times a day. That never bothered me, right?
That's it.
But it's because I didn't take into account that really his interactions was really online, right? And, you know, once my first heartbreak happened to my first girlfriend who I thought I was in love with. His first heartbreak was just a girl who said no to him, you know. And once he got past that, then he was able to interact better. Not just being comfortable with being bored, but being uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. You don't have to feel like everything's okay all the time. You know, it's okay for you to be angry. It's okay to me to feel awkward in a situation that's new to me, right? All these things are okay, but we want to stay where we think we should be, as opposed to being present with what we're experiencing in the moment.
You know, Dr. Keith Witness was able to be around me at a time where something that sounds petty to someone, I really was under stress, and he kind of was pretty good at really just joking with me and calming me down. We were in New York, and we went into this famous deli called Cat's Deli, right? So if you remember correctly, I walked in, and they was giving us tickets, and everybody has their, what is the word when something trigger? Everybody has their triggers. So I don't know if you remember that,
I don't know. I caught it.
You caught it. They were like, hold on to this ticket. If not, you won't be able to leave.
You can't get out without it.
Can't get out without it. That triggered me hard. First, I was like, hold on, what did he just say? Right? And I was already stressed. It really started stressing me out. You know,
throughout the meal, he was like keeping tabs on the ticket because he's like, what do you mean? Like, I'm getting out of here with or without a ticket. Like, I don't know why you're telling me.
And we almost lost the ticket. Remember, it was like this one. I was like, wait a minute. And I was sitting there. I was like, man, there's going to be some issues. They try to stop me coming out this door. Yeah. You know, I really went from being this real positive guy into like fight or flight type of thing. My trauma, being locked away as a kid, you know, doing 8.5 years in prison. And I never want to have that feeling of not being able to walk out of a door or anyone telling me I can't walk out. And this was a deli, and I was stressed about it. I don't even think, I had my coat in my hand. Yeah. And it was cold as I don't know what out there in New York. And I put my coat in my hand because I was like, the minute someone tries to grab me and tell me I can't leave, it's going down in here. Because, you know, but it didn't go out that way. But, you know, speaking of mental health, right? You know, me going back later on that night trying to figure out, why am I still? It's been many years. I've been away so long. I mean, free so long, but I still have those triggers.
You know what that means? That means you're human. That's all it means. It means you're human. The goal of mental health isn't to be perfect. There are some things that happen to us that we carry, and we're not going to escape it. We just get better at managing it. And that's okay. That's okay. Perfection is a myth. Perfection is a myth, right? You're successful. You have built yourself to a person who is respected, that's responsible, that is looked to as a leader, right? These are things you have done the work already. The fact that you're still triggered just means you're human. And now that you know that certain things can trigger you, all you need to do is have the tools. He was your tool then, but to have the tools to make sure if that happens.
And have a ticket.
And don't forget the ticket.
Yeah. No, give yourself grace, because you are the sum culmination of every decision you make. So even the city that we're raised in and grow up with, that becomes a part of us, and everything becomes a part of us, including the people that we've come across. So you are some culmination of everything. So getting yourself to this point, representation matters, because now you're going to influence other people that were in your spot before to show like, oh, there can be a success story. It doesn't end with just...
It's always hard when you feel like you're the first, right? So if you could look to somebody who did it, somebody who's successful, you know, you're like, if he did it, fuck that, I can do it. You know what I mean? It's human nature. It's always scary when you're the one, you're the pioneer, when you feel, listen, not to get deep into mental health or deeper into trauma and things like that, but my story is I was sexually abused by my father at 5. And I always felt like healing meant that I would not be affected by it ever. It would never affect me. You know, I became a therapist. I went to therapy. I talk about my feelings. And every once in a while, I still feel melancholy about it. But that's okay.
You wrote a book on this. How can folks find that book?
The book currently is on Amazon. It's called Little Charlie Unbroken. But it's also, if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. You can read it on Kindle Unlimited. But something that helps me when I'm triggered, because I can still get triggered from time to time, is to ground myself. And by ground myself is, it's an exercise that sounds really silly, but it's very powerful. So if I was triggered in this moment, I would look around, I would say, I see the Puerto Rican flag, I see blue, I see red, okay? I could feel my body on this chair, I could feel the pressure. You know what I mean? I am in an interview, I'm doing a podcast with Edwin and Dr. Keith, I'm safe. It sounds simple, right? But that's how I keep myself grounded.
And I just want to tell you that, I mentioned earlier, like, you're one of the kindest people, and I'm being honest about it, one of the kindest people I've ever met. Like, you just have good energy. If I'm in a crowded room, a lot of people think that I'm confident or arrogant, not knowing that I'm really scared and intimidated, but I have this front when I walk into rooms. I'm really alone, right? But I look for familiar faces to feel comfortable. So there's been times that we've been in the same place, and I don't know if you know, I kind of gravitated towards you on purpose to feel comfortable. And around those times, I really didn't know you that well, but I knew the energy that you had. So, sparking that conversation allowed me to be at ease. I don't really click well with a lot of folks. I'm social and I do all this stuff, but I really don't click well with too many people. There's only certain people I could really sit there and be around and feel okay. And just want to say, when you spoke about what you went through as a child, to me, that was the toughest thing I ever seen somebody do. I've seen so-called tough men out here in the community, in these streets. I've seen tough men in prison. But you coming out to speak about that and writing a book and pouring into other people is the toughest thing I haven't seen in a long, long time. So just want to say that you have much respect from me and so many different people. And I think you really have encouraged other folks who have experienced something like that or have known someone, but there's so many people that might not tell you, but I know people out there that are inspired, and you touched a lot of lives out there. So thank you for what you do and being brave to speak about that, because not everyone can do that. And to me, that's tough. I just want to say too, we have something called Bar Night that we do for adults because adults need their time. Dr. Keith helps sponsor that. But one thing, I remember one time he was like, "Hey, give me a table there." I was like, "For you?" Because there's a salsa band. And he was like, "Nah, for my mom, my family." And I was like, "They're playing salsa and everything." He was like, "Yeah." And just the vibe. They came in and I turned around. They looked like they were having so much fun than everybody else and enjoying the culture and just people. And it allowed me to understand that sometimes where your heart comes from. Because I've met your mom and dad, just such shout out to them, such beautiful people with big hearts. But it's just about how do you care for people? How do you care for human beings, period? And how do you interact with people and love on people? And that's one of the things we wanted to bring here at the Domino Dialogues. And I just want to thank you both for being a part of this. We have to do another show with this too, because we could keep speaking. And that's what this is about, having these conversations at a domino game. I wonder did anybody really finish any domino game? I mean, period, throughout the years, because of the conversations that happen, and it's important to have conversations. I really look up to both of you. I admire both of you so much. Safe, feel comfortable to call you friends more than colleagues. It's always a good time when I see both of you, and there's always that good energy. So thank you again, and I want to say farewell to everyone watching.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Your cameras. This was another episode of the Domino Dialogues. Thank you for joining us. See you soon.